Stop using mnemonics for note names. They are kind of the worst. I mean, sure, do whatever you want. But the rules for note naming are so simple, consistent, and easy to understand, I really don't know why you would want to complicate things. Now, we'll return to this and go over it in detail in just a moment, but I just can't, look at these monstrosities. Almost every musician knows or teaches these mnemonics or something like them. And they're not wrong, but they just cause so many problems because they obscure the simple pattern of note naming. They tell you nothing about ledger lines or other clefs, and there's no failsafe at all if you make an error. So there's no reason why people won't mix up the order or the clef or just invent something completely new, and believe me, they do. Sometimes I'll be working with a student and they'll be playing something like the C major scale, and they nail it until they get to this note, and they say, "What is that note?" And I say, "What is that note?" And they go, "So it's like all cows eat?" No, that's the bass clef, but it's just one higher than the last note. Oh, good boys deserve, no, still bass clef. Look, you just played a C. This note comes right after. And they just, and I say, "What comes after C?" "Every good boy's face?" And I'm like, "No, that's not even, okay. A, B, C." And they say, "D?" And I'm like, yeah. Mnemonics are great for remembering things that are related but don't have any particular pattern, like the order of the planets, or which way to turn a screw or a lid, or whatever. But these types of mnemonics aren't good for everything. Like the alphabet has this super useful song, and most people are comfortable using the warp point halfway through. But that's the right kind of mnemonic, because it's simple and memorable and it doesn't overcomplicate things. But can you imagine, instead of the song, if you learned, "After burning cars, dancing elephants fly goat herds"? No, of course not, because that is way too complicated and so easy to screw up. Some kid is definitely going to mishear and remember, "Dancing goats fly burning cars around elephant herds." They'll have no idea how wrong they are, it'll imprint on their brain, and then they're lost forever. Now listen, I know it feels sometimes like a lot of things in music are really complicated, and there's an exception to every rule. And honestly, I think these mnemonics are part of the problem, because they obscure simple patterns when note names are actually really simple and perfectly logical. I promise. Here's how it works. You've just got to know that there are 7 letters in the musical alphabet. And then after G, the cycle just repeats to A again. Next, there are these things called clefs. Which one you use depends on your instrument, but they function as a reference point that indicates how the staff lines up with the musical alphabet. It's just like numbering city streets or labeling the sides of a graph. For the treble clef, the alphabet lines up so the bottom line is E. Remember that, because just by knowing that single note, you can follow the alphabet up, 1 letter for every line and space, and now you can name every note in the treble clef. For bass clef, the alphabet lines up so the bottom line is G, and then you just follow the alphabet up, 1 letter for every line and space. And now you can name every note in the bass clef. Go ahead and pause and screenshot this if you want to, but that's it. Learn just 1 reference note and follow the alphabet. Note naming really is super easy, barely an inconvenience. Now, some people say, what about ledger lines? They're so confusing. But I really don't think they are, because they follow the exact same rules, no matter how many ledger lines there are. Going above the staff, you just follow the alphabet forward, 1 letter for every line and space as high as necessary. And going below the staff, you just follow the alphabet backwards, which, yeah, sure, it's a little weird at first, but you get used to it. Again, pause and screenshot if you want to, but that's pretty much it. Of course, it's going to take a bit of practice to identify a note without thinking about it, but you will eventually. Most people do it without even really trying. In the meantime, if you can just remember the bottom note of your clef, you can count up to any note in like 3 seconds. People are often reticent to do it this way, but I just think understanding the concept is so much better than relying on tricks that are so easy to mix up. Because then you get confused, you get mad at me, and then you quit music, and it's not my fault because nobody ever told you that good cats eat fudge. There's just no need to complicate a simple thing. Now I should mention that there are a few other weirdo clefs, but don't worry because not only is there a good chance you'll never actually encounter these, you definitely don't need to learn 10 ridiculous new mnemonic devices because C clefs have the easiest rule for note naming. You just need to know that the middle of a C clef defines C on the staff, and you can just follow the alphabet up or down from that reference point and name any note, just like any other clef. For many musicians, these clefs might be unfamiliar, but it's not exactly complicated. The center of the clef is C. And actually, treble and bass clef work similarly. Okay, so remember I told you that the treble clef has E on the bottom line, and the bass clef has G on the bottom line, and that's definitely true. But a useful thing to know is that these are also known as the G clef and the F clef. And the center of that circly squiggle of the treble clef defines G. And the two dots of the bass clef surround and define F. Those alternative names are because the shape evolved from old-timey stylized Gs and Fs. And now you've got a failsafe, a second point of reference for each of these two clefs just by looking at the shape of them. And now that's all you need to know for letter names in music. If you want to get into the details of sharp notes and flat notes and how notes line up with the piano, I did a deep dive on note naming in a separate video that you might want to check out. But now you know the basics. Use the mnemonics if you really want, but make sure you actually understand how note naming works. Otherwise, these little tricks tend to be more of a hindrance than a help. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and check my channel and the description for links to more videos. Good luck!